All right, social studies lesson number 5. We are talking about the Great Awakening, and that is not what happens after second block and y'all finally get up and head to your next class. That's an awakening that happens every block. The Great Awakening actually happens in the 1730s in the Puritan New England. This is kind of interesting to see because you're talking now, it is 1730. It is only 110 years since we first stepped foot into Plymouth Rock right here for the Puritans. And they are already in need of a spiritual revival and everything. So you're not talking a crazy amount of time. And you're talking people that when they decided to follow God, they literally left their home, went to Holland, and then from Holland went to America. I mean, these were people that were devoted and devout. And so, what was this great awakening about? The Great Awakening is going to be where we start tent revivals. And you're going to see, we even see that today in our counties and places like that around here. You'll see a tent pop up and the preacher be inside and people come to it and things like that. That is where it gets started. People would go outside of these towns, Jonathan Edwards and George Whitfield, and they would put up these big tents, and then people would flock. And I mean, when I say flock, they would flock whole towns. They would take days off of work and walk miles and miles and miles to hear these guys preach and to stay there and to listen to the word. And so that's where you see these tent revivals even today, especially in this area, because this is going to start the Baptist movement, the Methodist movement, and things like that. Even today, we still see tent revivals pop up occasionally here in Monroe County. Um, the reason we have to have this tent revival that's going on, this Great Awakening, is Jonathan Edwards realizes the people have gotten to be what's a formality with religion. It's not a relationship. See, their parents found God when they found the scriptures and went, oh my word, and dove into it and wanted to learn it, wanted to teach it to their children. That's the whole point of school and everything. And then the kids, the next generation, they're excited about it, but the next generation is just taught to them, and the next generation is just taught to them, and then the next generation is just formality. And by the time you're at 110 years, it's just what we do, and they don't even realize that it started as more of a relationship with it. And so Jonathan Edwards wants to take Christianity here in America back to its real roots and everything. And when he does that, it just energizes the country and sets off things that are going to affect the Declaration of Independence, the independence movement, the Revolutionary War. All these ideals and things are going to kick out of the Great Awakening. The things that he stressed is you had to have a personal relationship with God. It wasn't the things you did. It wasn't who your parents were or where you went to church. It was a personal relationship. And he's dead on right. And I don't care what religion it is, you Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, any of those, unless you have a personal relationship with your God, then you're just playing the game. And so these people, they wanted to get back to a personal relationship with who they believed is God. Um, and so one of the big things of that was all men are created equal. And you can almost hear the declaration ringing in that. How is this going to upset things? Because we've got things like governors and dukes and barons, and the way that England has structured its society. It's to be told that you're no different is going to really ruffle feathers on the people that are a little bit higher up and everything, and it's going to cause some turmoil. So this is one of the things that is the cornerstones of the Great Awakening. The other one is that all people are born sinners. It doesn't matter if you're the King of England. One sin is a sin. It doesn't matter if you're the lowest of the lowest woodcutters. One sin is a sin, and so it puts everybody back onto that individual equal level. And the royalty of England was not having this. They were not happy with the Great Awakening, and other thing is all people can be saved if they seek God's forgiveness. And see, like I said, it's just taking everything right back to the whole roots of Christianity, that all men have sinned, we need a God, and that God will save if we but ask. And so you see these kids that had just been going to church, and it's just what they did because their parents did. And all of a sudden they find a personal relationship with a God. And when that happens, whatever religion it is and wherever you decide to do it, when that happens, your personal relationship, it sparks a fire in you that can't be put out if it's real. if it's real. And that's what's happening. It just sets off all of New England and everything, like I say. And like one of the test questions for the thing. Now remember, this is where a lot of the ideas for the American Revolution is from the Great Awakening. You had people like George Whitefield. George Whitefield in 1 year is going to cover 5,000 miles on horseback. That is just an insane number of miles, if you can get that in your head, on horseback in 1 year. And in that 1 year, he's going to preach 350 times. And when I say preach, we're not talking an hour sermon. He doesn't do 2 a day. These would be 3 and 4 hour sermons, 1 a day. 350 times. That means that only 15 days of the year that year, he wasn't preaching. You're talking a day with travel. He would get up, travel someplace, and then do a sermon. And it was a constant everything. 15 days of the whole year, you weren't preaching a sermon. That is just insane. But because of his fervor and all the stuff that's going on outside of town, people are flocking to see it. And it's just something to see in this day and age when there's not much else going on. This was a huge event to have to go see. So George Whitefield is one of the big ones. The father, and I would know the father of the Great Awakening, is Jonathan Edwards. He does a famous sermon. It's still out there called Sinners in the Hand of an Angry God. It's probably one of the best sermons of all times. And his quotes and his lines are still being talked about today. Here's just a few of them, and just to analyze them. It says, "What? Get to heaven on your own strength? You might as well try to climb to the moon on a rope of sand." I mean, he's just letting you know there's no way to make a rope out of sand and climb to the moon. That's about the chance of you getting to heaven on your own goodness. And for the king to hear this, that the average man to hear this, yeah, they realize that. For the dukes, the barons, the duchesses, this did not help them because they think they're better than themselves. And they hear another one of his line is, "You contribute nothing to your salvation except the sin that made it necessary." Whoa, it puts you, every man, on the level of sinner. And some of the people did not want to hear that. Jonathan Edwards was cut to the core. Jonathan Edwards, with this thing, is going to kick off a lot of different denominations that come out of this. This is where your Baptist movement starts. This is where your Methodist movement starts. They start out of this great awakening that happens at this time. So you're seeing it wasn't just unchallenged, though. The people that were fine with the way it was, liked things like it was, a lot of the traditionalism, they called themselves the Old Lights. The people that were wanting this more personal relationship, wanting for everybody to realize that everyone's equal was the main thing over and over. They are called the New Lights. And so you have this contradiction between the Old Lights and the New Lights kind of back and forth during this time. And it's interesting because, like I say, some of the denominations sprang up because some of the other denominations were being, like the Puritan religion, like I said, it's still around today and everything, but it's not as popular because at this time it's put down because they're seeking that more of a personal relationship. I love this one. Let me tell you this one thing that John Wesley says. It says John Wesley tells of a dream he had, and he shows up at the gates of hell, and he asks, "Are there any Presbyterians in there?" And the answer comes back, "Yes, yes." And then he says, "Well, are there any Baptists in there?" And now this is his religion. And they're like, "Yes, yes." It's like, oh my goodness. He says, "Are there any Episcopals in there?" And the answer is yes. "Are there any Catholics? Are there any Protestants?" I mean, he goes through all the different things. And he says, and each time he asked into hell, and the answer was yes, some of them are there. And then he goes to heaven and he starts to ask and think, "Are there any Baptists there?" "No." "Are there any Presbyterians?" "No." "Are there any Catholics?" "No." And he says, "Then what is in heaven?" And he says, "Nothing but Christians." I think that is so, you want to talk about a little story when you hear the whole thing out. You want to talk about a story that will cut you to the core. He just took down all denominations and says, no, it ain't got anything to do with your denomination. It has everything to do with your personal relationship. So this is the Great Awakening that you're going to see right there at this time. The next thing that's got to be covered before we're almost to the end is the Navigation Acts. The Navigation Acts are, at this time, like I said, you're seeing the things that are leading towards the Revolutionary War and our ideology, these are the physical things that are now going to push us towards the Revolutionary War. England in 1651 and in 1660 passes these things called Navigation Acts, which was nothing but something to try and bolster and build up their economy for themselves to make money on these colonies that they had. These laws made it that you could only trade with England. So if I built cabinets here in America and I wanted to make a cabinet for people in France, I could only sell those cabinets to England, and then England could sell them to France, which is going to put the markup by the time it gets to France at a higher markup, which is going to hurt my number of orders. It's going to give the one time the sale money to England and not to me. They will be profiting on my work that's sent abroad. And so people, and it's not just if you're dealing with other things, your trade could only go through England. And they start with that, and then it's going to get worse and worse and worse. Now they want them to pay high taxes on any imports that are coming in. So if you're just selling things to other countries, if you're getting something from another country, they're going to add a tax on top of that, which all of a sudden there's certain goods that you want that come from certain countries. They have better this and they have better that. And now all of a sudden you're paying double what it was, and the double, half of it is going to England just because they let you buy it. It came over here on a French ship. The French people made it. We unloaded it, and England gets half the money. And so there starts to be this resentment. Now, it is their own colonies, but they are going to treat the American colonies like a servant almost, and just keep pushing them down and pushing them down. And this is the Navigation Acts where it starts, to where they literally start just telling us these are your rules. And the problem with being over here in America is once you taste freedom, you will not give it up. And these people have had a good taste of freedom, and they are not going to take lightly to being told that you have to pay double if it comes from another country, and you can only trade with England. Some of the other things they did to them also, like I say, all colonial goods have to be shipped on English boats. So we built our own boats. Shipbuilding is one of our things over here. So if I buy a boat here in America, I can't use it and take goods to England to save on my profits or anything. I have to put it on an English boat that I sold them, and they take it over there. It begins to just fly into the face of these colonists that it not only has to go through England, it has to go on an English boat. And if I get anything that's not from England, I'm going to literally pay double on that. Then also England started to where they had to inspect all the goods. That means they got on the boats, they looked to make sure everything was in order, and then charged you again. So not only now you're paying to go to England, it's going on an English boat, and now an English person is inspecting it. And not only if you're trading with France, you're going with the inspection on an English boat over to England, and then another inspection on another English boat over to France, and then by then your profit's gone. You've lost everything. And here in America, to make your own way, it is what the dream is about, to be able to see, hey, I can do this. I can make this. And they're taking that away from them. They're starting to cripple them at things. This is, if you remember at the very beginning of the chapter, we talked about mercantilism. Mercantilism is when you make money on trade or you make money on your colonies. And they are making it on both in this situation. They are making it on the trade that we do, and they are making it on the colonies by taxing us for these inspection charges and everything. You can see all the stuff that is pushing towards the revolution and everything. So I did not throw any jokes about any people from Sweet Plains in today. I was just trying to get through the information and make sure, because let me tell you right now, my class, especially not peaks in them, but maybe, I don't know. My class, I'll be back on Friday. You have a test on Friday over chapter 5. This finishes up the notes. Your notes for chapter 4 will be checked. And I'm sorry, not test on chapter 5. You have a test on chapter 4. Your notes for chapter 4 will be checked, and you will be taking the test on chapter 4 on on Friday. So you're going to have to study up for it. We're going to do a little quick thing on a test review just to help you out, though. I'm so looking forward to getting back there and just seeing y'all and being able to joke with you and have fun. So talk to y'all later.